There's a flash. For a split second, the sky looks brighter than the sun. You don't hear anything yet. And in that moment, most people would stop and look up. But the people who survive nuclear detonations often do something very different. They move, not away from the city, not toward the streets, filming it on their phones. They move inside. History shows that in the first minute after a nuclear blast, hesitation can be more dangerous than distance from the blast. Some survivors weren't the ones who understood what was happening. They were simply the ones who reacted immediately. Because nuclear survival doesn't begin with radiation. It begins with what is around you when the blast happens. Two people standing on the same street can experience completely different outcomes. One might be behind thick concrete walls, the other might be next to glass windows and light materials. That difference alone can determine who walks away. In cities, dense structures can absorb enormous amounts of energy. Concrete, steel, and layers of material between you and the outside world can dramatically reduce exposure, which means survival can correspond to a simple question. What stands between you and it? The moment the blast passes, a new problem begins. The instinct is to leave as soon as possible and get as far away as they can. Yet many survivors do the opposite. They stay sheltered. Because after a nuclear explosion, tiny radioactive particles are pulled into the atmosphere and then fall back down. This is called fallout. And the most dangerous period often comes after the explosion, when that dust begins to settle. But there's something unusual about radiation from fallout. It weakens surprisingly fast. Within hours, its intensity can drop dramatically, which means time itself becomes protection. People who remain sheltered longer often reduce their exposure far more than those who rush outside too early. But surviving the blast and the fallout only gets you through the first stage. After that comes a different kind of challenge. Water. After a nuclear event, many normal water sources become unreliable. Rain can carry radioactive particles. Open containers can collect contaminated dust. Even surface water can hold fallout that settled there hours earlier, which means the safest water is often the water that was sealed away before the event happened. Bottled supplies, closed tanks, stored reserves. Interestingly, food becomes far less urgent. Humans can survive weeks without eating. Water is the real priority. But there's another decision survivors eventually face. Do you stay alone or find and work with other survivors? Disaster research shows a pattern that appears again and again. People rarely survive major crises entirely by themselves. Small groups tend to last longer, not because they are stronger individually, but because they share resources. One person searches for supplies, another watches for danger, another rests. Survival becomes a shared task rather than an individual burden. And over time, that cooperation becomes the difference between temporary and long-term survival. Because surviving something like this isn't about one dramatic moment. It's about a chain of decisions. Where you move, what protects you, how long you stay sheltered, who you trust. And those decisions often happen in the first few minutes, long before anyone fully understands what's happening. Which raises a simple question. If something like this happened tomorrow, would you be ready for it?